All right, well, so the rains are here again, and as we remember June 3rd, 2015, we're still looking at ways that we could deal with Accra'S drainage systems to avert what happened last year, June 3. Our guests are seated. Let me just say that we will be joined pretty shortly by Governors Kwame Abuja, MP Adaklu. But right now we have the MP for Ofuasi Airebi, the Honorable David Oponkusi in the studio, and of course MP for Ayesano, the Honorable Samuel Ayepe. Good morning,
Good
Honorable
morning.
Members of Parliament.
Morning.
And thanks for joining us.
Ladies and gentlemen, how are you?
We're very well.
We're good.
Well,
We're good.
I know you're not in the constituencies where well, you may be. So as an MP, when you have issues that come up as a result of bad drainage and then people's lives are affected, do the people reach out to you, say it's raining, and do they call and say, MP, it's raining, or expecting you to do something?
Yeah. Let me first say good morning to your viewers. And yes, recent sand winning activities in part of my constituency is affecting us when it rains. They actually win some of the banks of some of the streams we have in the constituency. So now when it rains, the water is having a free flow across certain part of the constituency. It's affecting the other way. At the same time, coming to Accra and looking at what is happening, the Committee on Roads and Transport for the last week have been going around visiting certain good construction that are ongoing in the city. And visiting some of these roads show clearly that we need to do more about our drainage system, and also sanitation is very important. I as a member of parliament, I don't think we are learning enough lessons from what is happening to us as a country. Because how come when the rain stops, then it feels like we go to sleep, we don't put up certain measures that can help us to prevent some of these things? Considering the widening of some of the drainage systems that we have in the city. As we keep growing, as a number of all sort of people come into the system, there's the need for us to do a lot of education. There's the need for us to expand our drainage system. There's the need for us to clean the drainage and make the system work perfectly. But I think we are not doing enough. I'm of the view that we should do more. And as all the stakeholders, including Parliament, I think we have to do more. The education must also go well to know the responsibility of all the stakeholders, especially the three arms of government, what we have to do to get some of these things corrected. At a point in time, you end up pushing the blame to the legislatures, leaving the other two arms of government off the hook.
But you have the power to summon people who are not doing the right work.
We do.
You have
we
that
do.
power.
Yeah, at the committee
and we sometimes
level.
you don't exercise
we
it.
do that.
You don't
We
exercise
do
it
on
to
several
our
occasions.
satisfaction.
Look at this. What happened at the electricity bill and all that. The Committee on Mines and Energy did a good job by inviting the parties to Parliament and questioning them. When the disaster came, we brought in the minister, and the mayor was also brought at the committee level. He was questioned and asked of certain measures that will be put in place to make sure that this thing will not happen again. But you see, we must understand the fact that Parliament don't perform the day-to-day activities of governance. So when we invite you and you tell us your plans, what we can do is to follow up to see that those plans are done. If they don't do it with the excuse that there's no money, there's blah, 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 we don't perform the day-to-day activities of governance. So it becomes very difficult when all the blame is put on Parliament that you don't do this. I quite remember the Committee on Works and Housing invited the minister and the mayor, the local government committee, the same. So that is what we can do, and that's what we have to do. And we did that. We cannot go and sit at the office of the president or the Minister of Finance releasing money. On several occasions, we have heard the president asking the finance minister to release money for certain things that should prevent some of the flooding, that the money never released. So when it comes to that point, it becomes difficult for us as members of parliament to accept the blame put on us.
So the Honourable Samuel Ayepe is MP for Ayesano, and you've touched on a number of issues. I'm going to bring your colleagues in pretty shortly. We've been joined now by MP for Adaklu, the Honourable Governs Abuja. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, and be sure to join in that conversation. So we're looking at best practices, ways that we
And
can
very
tackle.
interesting thing that you've done. I am a member of Roads and Transport Committee in Parliament. He's my vice chairman of the committee. And one of a senior member who have served on that committee before recently for 2 terms.
Okay.
Actually, he's not a member now, but very experienced member in
Okay,
terms
and
of
you
Roads
just
and
cut
Transport
in
in Parliament.
when I was addressing our lovely viewers. Can I just finish with them and
Yeah,
then get
finish
back
that
to you?
and come back.
Yeah, so I was just saying that you could join in that conversation. I want to know from you what you have done or what you are doing in your own small way to avoid flooding in your community, in your constituency, wherever that you are. Let us know. Share them with us on all our social media platforms. And you can please make that point now.
Oh, sir, I've made the point.
You
So
did.
today you have a good opportunity to ask questions on
Indeed.
roads, expansion of
Oh.
drainage, the prevention
Very
of this
well.
flooding system. The experienced men are here to.
Very, very well.
handle it.
Honorable David, David Opang, so do people really understand that their actions, affect all of us? I'm talking about dumping of refuse, indiscriminate dumping of refuse, and building on waterways and the like.
I believe that if we did understand that, we would not have come to this point. Now we're asking a lot of questions. We are asking the questions because there are problems. In the first place, I think we do not understand nature properly. God gave us a drainage system. So even before we came to settle on the land drains itself. At the moment you settle on the land, you make certain structural changes that will affect the drainage system. The wise thing to do is to understand what you came to inherit and to ensure that even as you build on the land, you are able to maintain that particular drainage system. Because people talk of covered drains, uncovered drains. The drains God left us are uncovered. But they work perfectly. So first of all, I do not think that we understand the nature of drainage. Otherwise, we will not find communities where virtually every aspect of the hill is taken over. First of all, people parcel out lands as if it was on a flat sheet of paper. Instead of parceling out land, knowing the topography of the land itself. Because if you did that, you probably leave those natural low-lying areas, natural gullies, those areas that will help drain rainwater when rain falls, so that you do not touch them. But you find places where people demarcate the land, like I said, as if it's on plain sheet. So you find your plot right in the middle of a drainage system. If you drive along roads, on the Sawam Road, for example, there's a particular wall along a very low-lying area. Every time it rains, the wall breaks down, the person comes back to build it. It is obvious, for example, that that place is a channel. Recently, I stopped by the roadside to look at something. There's between Winneba and Swedro, there's a culvert. On the other side, on the other side of the culvert, the outlets, somebody has started filling. And it's actually filling up the whole outlet. What it means is that in future, when it rains on the other side, we are going to have the water flow over the road because there's no culvert. Somebody has blocked that culvert. And you wonder, who is in charge of seeing to it that structures that have been put in place with our money are maintained? They have a purpose. They have a function. So we have not yet understood what drainage is all about. Otherwise, we'll not use drains as our refuse dumps. Again, the way we live very close to drains. Sometimes I look at the prevention. What we are doing is not prevention. It's just like it rains, the silt, and we bring machines in. But how do we prevent the silt and the refuse from getting in the first place? That is prevention. It's about time that we make sure either people don't live close. That's the law. They're already living close. What do we do about those living close? We probably engage them to make them responsible. Every aspect of the drainage system, every line of the drainage system is occupied by somebody else. Can we engage them to ensure that they are responsible for the stretch of drainage system that borders their property? I mean, there are various ways, innovative ways that we can do. But all these things we will do, and in the night somebody will dump refuse. Again, you even realize along the way we are developing, just drive towards Winneba. somebody buys land, brings a dozer, and starts clearing the land all the way to the road, including the shoulders of the road. The shoulders of the road are not part of his property. So why should somebody be allowed to clear all the way onto the shoulders of the road? If you cleared to the limits of your land, you probably have a 5-meter shoulder. When it rains, the grass along there will catch the silt.
Have you asked these questions to the authorities who allow this to happen?
I have asked questions of a lot of authorities. But you see, we have a lot of overlapping this thing in Ghana. We have, like I said, the Department of Roads doing some drains. We have hydro. We have the local authorities. And sometimes they don't even seem to, instead of their roles reinforcing each other, they seem to contradict each other. So you realize that there's this kind of sensitivity to issues that will affect your work. I wonder, I have worked with the roads department before, that when we drive on the road, do we have that sensitivity, something that will attract us to see that someone is doing something here that will affect the function of the road? Like I just said, if somebody buys land and he clears all the land, the moment it rains, you find silt going all over onto the asphalt road. It could be there for ages. And eventually, you lose that portion of the road. It's happening all over our major roads. Because the silt comes on, nobody picks the silt on. It continues, and once the silt comes onto the road, it undermines the road itself because it allows moisture to stay on the tarmac, and eventually it will destroy the tarmac. So there are a lot of things that we could do to prevent. We rather have this cycle of build, neglect, rebuild. That's what I've realized. Build, you build it,
keep going back
neglect
to
it. I've seen a lot of roads going bad now. We are building new roads. I've seen sometimes only a few potholes. If you patch it and did the resealing, you could save it for another 5 years. But we'll wait till it goes bad, then we're going to look for gravel. One day we will not find gravel. So these are some of the issues. We haven't learned the lessons.
It's interesting that we keep asking the same questions. And Kafi, it was as if you were in my head. I was asking myself, so if now we find people like yourselves ask these questions as well, then we don't even know where to go. We keep talking about this. We keep having this conversation every year when the rains come. When are we going to get there? If indeed the laws were working. I mean, in civilized, countries, you don't find people just dumping indiscriminately. Attitudes. So if indeed we had laws that were, kind of taking care of some of these activities or these things that we do as a people.
Yeah, we talk of attitudes, but again, laws help to shape attitudes.
Indeed.
People on their own will not do the right thing. You do things that, we always want the easy way out. So laws are important to help shape attitudes. In the long run, laws are punitive, but in the long run, we don't want to see the situation where we are constantly punishing people. We want the punitive aspect of laws to shape people's attitude and behavior, and finally their character. That's what has happened in the advanced countries. So the enforcement regime is important. And again, I think that the institutions that are supposed to enforce these things are not strong enough. And I'm talking of our local governance system. The most important thing for me, the local governance system is the most. If you could strengthen that, if you go to all these countries, if you go to a village, they are so independent. They have their own structure. As a matter of fact, they employ their own doctor. They employ their own school heads. Most places, they have their own water bodies, and you could see the strength of the local people.
Why do you think that we haven't been able to strengthen the local?
The local governance system was disrupted when the colonial powers came. That is, we had our chiefs; they were strong enough. We did everything, communal labor, do these things. They were disrupted. We tried to pick it some time back. Again,
it's been several years.
Again, there was a disruption during the AFRC, where you realize if you look at those times properly, where the powers of the chiefs, elders were usurped by PDCs and all those things. When you go to the workers' defense committees, usurping the powers of management. So there was another disruption to that. So we need to go back and see. Now it's going to be more difficult. Once you lose something, it's difficult to bring it back. Okay. We need to strengthen our local governance system.
Right.
Whichever way we can.
We'll be hearing from an engineer about what has been done since June 3, but I just want to bring in Mr. Agboja. So, okay, well, fine. Colonial people interrupted our systems. military adventurers did that. But since '92, we've been in a democratic system, and that's over 24 years. I mean, enough time for local governments to take action and deal with some of these problems, don't you think?
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share this wonderful platform. And good morning to my colleagues. Very wonderful day, and I wish my compatriots in Accra a wonderful day. Well, I think your last question is quite important. It's quite shocking that we have had at least 2-3 military interventions before May and then June 4th. And since then, it's been 24 years above. It's surprising that we can blame our inability to do things today on something that happened 24 years ago, that the chiefs were disrupted and other things, and we can't pick it up. I think that is basically throwing our hands in the air, because indeed, I have no doubt that June 4th did bring a certain level of discipline, though not a discipline that will say that let's go to parliament and vote on it. But I remember that even as a kid, I saw my father regularly weeding around my house, our house, within that period.
Because the soldiers forced him to do it?
Well, I mean, and I saw that the head of state those days going into the drains, desilting drains in front of people's house, not because he says you can do it all the time, but leading by example. And indeed, those days, I thought, without mincing words, it appears a certain level of self-awakening and discipline returned to us. Some people will even argue that the so-called democracy has even made people think that democracy means that you can continue doing the wrong thing. But it's a debate we can have on another day. When you ask me about the source of these problems, I think they are quite simple. We are addressing the symptoms of the sickness we've got instead of looking for the cause. As I sit here as an architect, he's also a professional in the built environment. Ghana's building regulation is not fit for purpose. As an architect, I take some of the building regulation things and ask myself, in 2016, is this what we should be applying to the built environment, building our road, putting up our buildings? And that's the big answer is no. Our building regulation is not fit for purpose. So whoever is even the professional implementing the so-called building plan and other things is implementing something that has already got an inherent defect.
Where are the defects in this building regulation?
Defect is that every year or every 2 years periodically, as a nation, because you said best practice, if you go to UK, what you realize is that the organization that oversees the building regulation and other things is under the office of the Deputy Prime Minister. So regularly, the professional bodies, architects, engineers, planners, go and review and take into account how much rainfall have we been having for the past 5 years? What is the sunlight pattern? What is the climatic condition? What are the new materials that have been developed that can be adopted? And they incorporate that back into the old building regulation. So they issue a new version of the building regulation. And local authorities take it from there. Local authorities don't go and make their bylaws based on their own understanding. But professionals tell them that based on research and understanding, this is where they should go. In Ghana, it doesn't. As an architect, if I take my drawings, somebody commissioned me, I take my drawing to maybe a local council, the guy there hasn't even been to university before, excuse me to say, in terms of understanding the work I've done. I've written the things and then drawn things. The guy is not even an engineer. He's not a quantity surveyor. He's not an architect. And he's vetting my work.
Why is he there?
Because there are only about 300 architects in the whole country. There are only similar number of engineers. So we don't even have enough.
So let's forget let's forget the devolution and do everything central.
And 90%,
while we're waiting for the capacity to be built up.
And 90% of these professionals are in Accra, Kumasi, Takrady. They don't want to work in the village. So at Accra Assembly, ask me, is there any planner, engineer, as an architect at Accra Assembly? They don't exist, but we expect them to implement something. I'll give you one example.
So decentralization is a hox then?
No.
You don't have the people at those levels.
That is
the point I was making, that our local systems are not strong enough. I mean, it's reinforcing the point I'm making.
It's a fact. They don't exist. So you see, and look, if you putting up your building, apart from by the time the local council approves your building, taking into all things into consideration, the size of your roof will determine automatically the amount of water that will be collected, will determine the size of your roof gutter, should determine the drains that should be within your property, and how much water will be discharged from your house into the public drains. That should determine the size of the drain in front of your house, and the number of houses of your caliber on your street will determine how much volume of water will be collected into a main sewer somewhere. But who actually understands this thing? We don't take into consideration.
Well, you understand it, then you are educating us.
You know, so
and it just makes you feel that we're in trouble, because if we're not
course,
taking advantage of all this knowledge and incorporating it into our building, then we're going to have problems. I'm
happy that Ghana Institute of Architects, Ghana Institute of Engineers recently made a proposal to the local government minister that it is true that many, in fact, maybe 99% of engineers, architects are in private practice. They don't work with government because, I mean, they probably feel comfortable working for themselves. But we can have a situation where these institutes can have an understanding with the local government ministry to periodically maybe attach a certain number of them to local councils. So maybe every month, if we're going to have the passing of building planning, all those things, they sit. They will travel from where they are, sit and make the appropriate approvals, and then come back at a lowered fee, so that you don't employ them and keep them that the burden would be on you. So I believe that until we go back, fortunately, the building regulation is also being looked at. And when I attend my professional body meetings, I tell them, look, you are all pretending that we are doing the right thing all the time. But the point is that the basis of your work, which is the statutory building control regulations, are not even fit for purpose. So you are highly trained, but you haven't got all the tools. And guess what? How many people watching this program even knows why they should go for an architect instead of a draftsman? How many people know that it is better for you to go and look for an engineer when you are putting up a story building instead of a structural draftsman?
Well, you architects have not educated us.
I agree with you.
You haven't told us that.
Exactly.
So indeed, and for most of those people as well, they're looking at their pockets.
Exactly.
So can they afford the architects?
Well, you see, then it's a chicken and egg. So if you knew when you needed an engineer, you went for a structural draftsman, then when your building comes collapsing, don't even bother to call God, because you brought it upon yourself.
Indeed.
When your children are sick, you don't take them to the carpenter. You take them to the doctor. So why is it that when it comes to building, people think they can do anything?
What a proverb. On that proverb, we're going to go and check out this video. It's a hydrological engineer, Wise Amatefa. He worked with the AMA in the past, and he's giving us, there's an interview, it's on what the government has done in the last year since the floods took place in 2015. So let's check this out, and we'll come back into our conversation. We're looking at the best practices, as Biswa put it, on how to deal with the drainage issues, the technical issues, the legislative issues, the issues of local government, all the things that have to come together to make sure that we can solve these problems once and for all. So check out this, and we'll be right back. This is GH Today on GH1 TV. Good morning to you.
The June 3rd disaster has taught us a lot of lessons. It has taught us that we need to be circumspect in the way we handle our waste. It has also taught us that government should take the drainage issues serious, and it has also taught us that the public needs to be educated a lot, because some of them do not understand the precautionary measures that need to be put in place so as to not to get flooded, and especially people who put their structures in waterways to at least be educated that before you site any structure, you move away from the water course, so as if there should be any flooding, you are not caught in the event of the flood. And the state needs to also to make sure that they implement all laws regarding the location of structures in the waterways. When the person is not required to put a structure in the waterways, they must go in at once, remove the structure, so as not to let the person begin to live in the situation, and which will otherwise result in the death of the fellow.
Should we not be worried that till date, the long-term measures that were supposed to have been put in place haven't started?
No, all the long-term measures have been started. You know, long-term measures need studies, needs designs. So studies and designs are going on. There was recently an advert by the Minister of Local Government calling for consultants to get to procure the services of consultants who will come in to prepare the drainage master plan, to update the drainage master plan of Accra. That will involve all the districts surrounding Accra, because the flooding of Accra is not only involving the city of Accra. It comes from the surrounding districts. So the drainage master plan will now involve the district. Will also take into account the management of waste. So the drainage master plan is not going to look at only water conveyance. It's going to look at water storage. It's going to look at waste management. It's going to look at where to put waste so that these waste do not come back into the system.
When should we see action? And when I say action, we are talking about studies and so on and so forth. For the generality of the people, they want to see action. Access going down, excavators going down. When is this going to begin?
I think some action has been seen, especially removal of buildings in the waterway along the Odo. You saw the AMA coming out to remove some of the structures. But those long-term ones will take time to come. It will take time to procure the services of consultants. It will take time for funds to be identified. So in the near future, once the consultants are procured, designs are done, then actions will be taken. I don't think from a very long time to come. I cannot tell you tomorrow next, but I know consultants will be given about 6 months to do their work. And after that, then implementations will begin, and then you begin to see signs.
So that was Wise Ametepe, a hydrological engineer, basically getting to the root of the issues. Your thoughts first on what he was speaking about, Mr. Ipe.
Yeah, these things are, who said we don't know them? We know. I'm saying we, in terms of the authorities, those stakeholders, those who are supposed to implement these policies, they know them, they have it. If you go to our various universities, as my friend just put it, we have research works that is there that can implement it. So it's there. I am of the view that the most important thing is the laws that we have and its implementation and the policy side of it. That is the most important thing about it. Honorable, my vice chairman of the committee was talking about having the assemblies, the competent people that should be able to handle affairs and all that. But the problem that we are facing are in the cities, where he sees that about 90% of those competent people want to live in the cities. And these are where the people are. These are where we're having the problems. So I partially disagree with the fact that we don't have the competent people to go to our health sectors. You see a whole hospital, and then they have one specialist who visits the hospital once or twice in a week. So the physician assistants are there, and the junior doctors are there. They will handle the issues, and then referrals are made to bigger hospitals, or that specialists will come. So also we can do in our assemblies in terms of works that we do in the various assemblies. The technicians will be there, and they will be handling affairs, and then at a point in time we'll have the specialist or the engineers, the structure engineers, the architects will even go there, and then, so we can make that arrangement as we've been doing in the various health sectors. But the most important thing is that we don't have the problems in the villages as the smaller communities that we have. The issues are in Accra, in the city centers, where we have these competent people. Can somebody tell me one major project in terms of road construction, drainage, government structures that the private men who he says are feeling reluctant to work in the government sectors, they have formed the consultancy firms, and all the contract, the Committee on Works and Housing will tell you that any of these projects have a private consultant. Yesterday, I even asked the assistant director of urban roads that, my brother, why is it that we have the engineers at urban roads? Yes, when we want to construct roads, we engage private consultants. And he gave a long explanation. Yes, but the people are there. We engage them. So the issue is not about whether we have. He was there yesterday when we inspected the asphalting of Accra roads. Instead of us to expand the drains that were built by Gottisberg on the Jamestown, British Accra. We went there yesterday. He was there with me. Instead of us to expand, that drainage was built by Gordon Gottisberg. And instead of us to expand it, we didn't. Rather, we have reinforced the base.
Based on some research, or you just look at it and say expand the drain?
Layman point of view, you can see clearly.
No, but that's not how we're going to work. We cannot work based on layman's
I want to
view.
develop a point. Layman point of view, you can see clearly that this drain that was built in 100 years ago needed expansion before it.
But do you know how much of an expansion
we
you need?
Asked. That is why when they asked me to end, we asked.
Mm-hmm.
And they said they were not, it wasn't part of the budget.
Who did you ask?
We asked the engineers on the field. We went with them. We didn't go alone. We went with the field. And I can't remember when they brought the loan agreement for Accra'S asphalt, we asked them, you are going to re-asphalt, asphalt overlay. And are you considering the drains? Because we know very well that those who built those drains in 1900 were thinking about the size of the community, the waste that will pass through and all that. They may not think the 100 years after. So now we are going to relay. We must look at reconstruction because a settlement has increased, volumes of water has gone up. So you don't need any engineer to tell you that before you do the relaying, you must get an engineer to research into the flood or the water that will pass through the drain for expansion before the overlay. And indeed, we saw clearly that at a point in time, it rained the day before we went there, even the morning before we went there. And we saw clearly that we have problem with the drainage system.
And the engineers, you said, told you that indeed they needed to expand
when they brought
the already existing.
Yes, exactly.
So if indeed they knew this, why didn't they say that earlier?
That's what I'm saying. The issue may not be as a part of that we are not aware, we don't have the laws. At times it is the money, and then the political will to tackle some of these issues.
Because what will be, and Mr. Pokusi, you were on that committee, what will it take for us to expand drains? Will you have to displace people? Is that what authorities are afraid of? What amount of discomfort?
I am somebody who doesn't go in for wholesale expansion of drains. Like I said, if there's need to expand some drains, fine. Most of Accra is already built up. Sometimes we do not have to react to peak rains. I mean, once in a cycle. Because it's like designing for earthquakes. We have earthquake design, but honestly, it is not to stop the earthquake, but to mitigate some of the effects. We should look at all these things holistically. Yes, in some areas, some drains will have to be expanded, but it shouldn't be all cases. It's a network of drains. Some start from some place. Sometimes I see drains, the same size of drains all over. You see a road, 0.6 drain running a whole kilometer. By the time, if it fills up there, and then other drains join in, by the time it comes down to about a kilometer and a half, the capacity is exceeded. So it is not just a simple expansion of all drains, but we should look at which part of the drains need to expand it. And then again, the management of the drains. There's a very big drain at Kadeshi, the market. You can actually drive your car through. People don't know that there's a covered drain, but it ends at Accra Academy, where it becomes an open drain going to Bobuashi. Something we need to, because that alone is a risk factor, because a whole lot of silt gets in there and gets into the underground drain. How often do we go down there to look at what is happening? I remember when they would give a contract for someone to go. That's the first time I climbed down and realized that you could actually sleep there. It's a whole drain. You could drive your car through. And there were parts where people were actually sleeping. Some homeless people were sleeping. So that drain, for example, is big enough. But if we do not manage it, if we don't ensure that it's not silted, first of all, prevent the silt from getting in there. Then that amount of silt that will eventually get in, because whatever you do, something will get in. You should have a system for managing. And coming to that, all of us have studied. I mean, we don't sometimes, like I said, maybe because the well is not there or the money is not there, we don't apply studies. All engineers are highly trained. They've gone outside. We all did our masters outside, Birmingham and other places. And we were given examples of how they manage the road. For example, we do maintenance. We used to patch potholes. 1-2 potholes. Then we decided it was too expensive, this direct labor. So we went to contract. How do you go and give 4 potholes out of the contract? So what do? You wait till you have 70 potholes. And then once you have 70 potholes, the road is practically gone. A road needs, for me, we need to go beyond maintenance and to manage the road. Earlier on, I said people were, somebody wants a filling station. He manages to get an access onto the highway. The next filling station, access to the highway. The next one, somebody has a shop, he has access. So on a stretch of about a kilometer, about 7 accesses to the highway. It is no more a highway. Now the bypass, its own bypass. We're sitting there. Communities are developing around the bypass. What was the need of a bypass? So that we don't go through
the main traffic.
Main traffic. Now, immediately you see people coming into the main traffic. Who owns the road? Who owns? We don't construct a drain, a road, or a facility and walk away. That's what we are doing. Most of these drains you see, if you manage them properly, they will function. Again, when there's a flood situation, God, like I said, God has his own drain system. Sometimes there's a way for water, because we are in Accra. If it rains at the time when there's high tide, most of our outlets will not go. If the tide is high, it will not accept water coming in. God naturally has a place for water to rest. You know, there's a place around Malam, we call it Lafa. That's stream there. It's a wide place, so that even if the water can't go in, it's a wide place where the water will rest, so to speak. Rest. And then when the tide is low, flow into the sea. We are building on all those places. We are building. Around where the interchange
Who is giving the permits?
Again, that's the problem. Because from Wager Junction, from Makati, Wager Junction, all the way to that area, it's supposed to be an aviary. If you do the Accra master plan, it's there. It's a green area around the Densu. It's supposed to be an aviary. That is
for birds.
For birds, so that we can all go and watch birds and do these things. We sat down.
Probably catch them and eat.
At least we could catch them and eat if we want to eat birds. But where are they? We sat down. Those are low-lying areas. And again, it's up to us. I will not go and buy land there. But a lot of people will buy land there.
You talked about education right from the start. And I'm thinking, what has been the level of education? So that people know that this land that I'm going in for is on a waterway.
I mentioned
Let me come to Honorable Governance.
Well, I like that when Kafui giggled about the aviary thing. You see, sometimes I think when people see antelope in Ghana, they think of fufu and the pound of soup. In another country, when people see antelope, they see an opportunity for tourism.
When you're hungry, you're hungry, everything is food.
It's a cultural thing, kind of it. Well, the education must go, but you see, I think, what are you educating the people on? I partly disagree with my brother when you see, the talk is always about Accra. Of course, when flooding happens in Accra, it's bigger news. Almost half of my community was flooded 2 years ago. I mean, I couldn't drive. I was actually stuck in the village. So flooding is not Accra matter. It happens across the country. The only difference is that the concentration of people in Accra is such that, in fact, even the journalist he calls himself a victim. So obviously the reportage is more of Accra. But the point is this. If we want to address this thing, I will still insist that let's go back to basic. He gave a very good example. What makes people determine the size of a drain on a 1 kilometer stretch, along a 1 kilometer stretch? Is it a standard size of drain that you are building, or you actually know that based on the density of buildings or proposed density of buildings up to the time that given to us by the planners, this is the size of drains we need to build? I am not aware that it is always based on a projection on how many buildings would be built along this drain. It is simply, let's put some drain here. I may be wrong. Maybe my colleague engineers have actually done some studies and put this in there. But until it is based on a proposal that we know, that the planners say that we will put up maybe 20,000 units of maybe 3 or a combination of 3 or 4 bedroom houses here. We know the volume of water that will be discharged. So we are building these drains along this route which serve this community. And these drains will go further into a main drain somewhere and ends up in the sea. That's the only way. But if we build it and just, in fact, sometimes when you see some drains, you ask yourself, which water actually will enter this?
I was going to go there.
The drains actually are lost, and it's not non-performing. And you see, we have to go back
I'm
and
not
just
an expert, but when you see some of the drains, you're like.
And you see, my brother said something about the asphaltic overlay in Accra. When they came to Parliament, I wasn't a member of the committee that time, but I noticed they were doing an overlay to protect the surface of the road as existing. My colleague suggested, why don't you do an additional work by adding some drains where necessary? Good suggestion. But as of that time, they were already in Parliament with seeking approval for a finite amount of money to do asphaltic overlay. They asked them to go back and see if they can put a new package together to bring so that they can increase some of those drains to protect the road. And I agree with them that if you put the asphaltic overlay in some of the places we saw, and then the water becomes stagnant on it, the asphalt might even fail. So it's a good idea. And they said, okay, they agree, they are putting a package together, and once they get approval to spend that money, they will come back to Parliament to seek approval to put the drains by the side. At least that should be based on the fact that they know the volume of water that will be going there. Because this country, we are quite reactive in so many things. There's flooding. So what is it? It's about let's go and desilt or do another thing. But the point is, how do we prevent this? And he touched on some of it. We all of us, maybe including his house. I don't know how much study went into determining where his house should be. Is it within the planning regime of his local assembly? You probably realize that maybe all of us are guilty about it. But I'm saying that when the laws, the building regulation, building control laws that he said Gisbeck one are the ones you are implementing, what chance do you have even if you implement the Gisbeck law? So the new law, fortunately, would come to Parliament. So all of us should sharpen our pencils as victims and people who actually cause the problem. When it comes to Parliament, we should represent our people. For once, I would think that when this bill, this building regulation, building control thing comes to Parliament, we should do clinics in our communities to find out from them what they think should be added to this, so that the document you have will not be based on floods in Accra or floods in Kumasi, but something that is implementable across the country. I think that is the only way we can deal with it. As for the education, I have no doubt, your viewers, everybody knows that when you dump solid waste in the gutter in front of your house, eventually, even if the flooding starts from the guy up the stream, it will surely get back to you. And when it happens, it's not about God. This is not force majeure. It's a self-inflicted decision. And we politicians must be able to say it louder, without fear of losing vote or gaining vote, because that is the distance. Otherwise, it would have been solved since Gisbeck time. Why is it that it's not been solved? Every government come and go, it's not being solved. Because we are playing to the gallery of the issue.
Let me ask this question.
Yeah.
A law that is not enforced, is it just a suggestion?
Well, it is not a suggestion. It's a law. Must be enforced.
Yes, but then it is not enforced. So it just becomes words.
I gave you an example that
we're supposed to have sanitation police.
Yes.
That was a recommendation that was given after the June 3 committee met last year. What happens to people who do the wrong thing? The people who build in the wrong places?
Well, they must be punished, or the remedy taken place.
Do we see that? When was the last time you read of somebody whose house had been pulled out of a waterway?
Yesterday I was listening to a program on one of this weekend. They know the call-in section somewhere. More than 60% of those calls were blaming ourselves that we are not doing the right thing. But I have a different opinion, not because I'm a leader or say a member of parliament. And who voted us to power? It's the same people. And the question is this. We vote people, we pay taxes. You are talking about other jurisdictions that people do the right thing. They have been shaped by the people they pay their taxes to, people that queue to vote them to power, to shape to do the right thing. If they didn't wake up one day and then everybody started doing the right thing. No. And that is why there's a need for us as leaders, when they vote us to power, when they pay their taxes to us, to use the taxes to manage them. It is our responsibility to put up measures. Education is part. Enforcing the law and punishment must also be done to shape the very people who voted into position. We shouldn't turn 360 degrees to blame same people and saying you are
all
not
right,
doing
honorable
well.
members, we're going to continue this conversation just in a minute. Just in a minute. Did you know, or do you know the level to which that your actions affect all of this? Well, I believe that by now you do. So continue to share with us those things that you're doing in your own way to avoid the floodings that we see when the rains set in our various communities, to all our social media platforms. Very much active right about now. But let's quickly take that spot of world news from around the world in 60 seconds.
Asian stocks rose to a 5-week high after U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen gave a largely upbeat assessment of the U.S. economic outlook, while the dollar declined on easing expectations of interest rate increases in coming months. Online media outlet BuzzFeed has pulled out of an advertising deal reported to be worth $1.3 million with the Republican National Committee over objections to the party's presumptive nominee Donald Trump. Dashed expectations of a U.S. interest rate rise next week could force the Bank of Japan to use its dwindling policy ammunition sooner than it had wanted, as a resurgent yen further grimms the recovery in the country's exports and consumer prices.
All right, well, you're watching JH1 TV live across the world on jh1tv.com, and we're looking at the issue of the drains and how we can manage these drains so that we mitigate or we reduce the impact of just simple rains that God blesses us with, and then there's confusion and mayhem and disaster and death. So you can send us...
direct all the flood waters into the Accra'S Dam?
No, we can't. So, Edem Mokpokpo tweeting at Edem races at Adam Nana inside Kaswa, the names of localities in Ghana. Adam Nana. There's a drain construction there, and I wonder how much water it can take because it's so shallow. It ties into what you are saying. The man is no engineer, but I'm sure he's looking at the drain and thinks, man, this drain is too small and it may not contain the water.
Yeah.
That's so when things like this happen, who checks these standards? Who can we hold? Because I am tired of authorities saying, "Oh, Ghanaians, you have to change your attitudes." I'm not buying that. People must be made to do the right thing. Who do we speak to like this?
Let me go back a little to this education thing, because it's important, but we seem to think that educate the people on how to use the road, educate the people on how to site their houses, educate the people on how to keep the environment clean. These are, I mean, the way people are looking at. Let me also go a bit further. Education must be for life. There's always a quotation that always runs in my mind. One, Walter Birmingham, I hear he was the first principal of University of College of Cape Coast then. Says education is an end in itself, and it should be wanted for its own sake. It says like virtue, it is its own reward. I call it education for life, education for its own sake. I think the time has come for us to look at education generally, where people grow up having learned to cope with life. Somebody, JSS, or even primary school child, finishes drinking water and throws it anywhere.
So littering all of
So all this noise we are making, if you don't educate people for life, we are joking. Because once he gets into that age, you are not going to educate him how to do a specific thing. Let us have education that will allow all of us, or that will teach all of us how to live an environmentally clean life, to be able to understand and respect nature, to be able to do the right things, also respect our laws. Our education is too low when it comes to these things.
We being asked to respect our laws when it doesn't work.
Well, when we respect it, it works. When you respect it,
The people
it
who are
means it
supposed
is
to be
working.
enforcing it are not doing their job.
Again, when you respect it, it works.
Honorable Abuja.
If you want to stretch it, it wouldn't only be about littering. Look,
Yeah.
I built somewhere, quiet area. 2 years later, 2 churches turn up. Every Wednesday, there will be this thing. And then it's as if this thing keep coming up. And I'm saying that it shouldn't only be about littering. It's about noise pollution and everything. How many of us have got... I remember Dr. Tony Edu had the courage of taking a church near his house in those days to court, to the local council, for them to restrict the tone down. But in this country, how many people have the courage to say that if you don't insulate, and guess what? I don't believe that any building cannot be insulated enough to contain the noise. The technology is there.
Possible.
It costs money. But
you can
if
do
the
it.
law says that a certain level decibel of sound should not emit outside of your wall, that is a law.
Of course.
If you can't abide with it, close down your church.
Indeed.
You become an antichrist. Obviously.
The devil
you,
incarnate.
you took the word right out of my
incarnate.
mouth.
Yeah, devil
You see,
incarnate.
and for me, I missed the ban on drumming.
You
Because
know,
the day after the ban
There was still
ended,
noise.
the people resurrected with the noise.
The rains. Go to the villages. I came from my village on Sunday. People are calling for the rain so that they can produce the food you and I eat. Somebody living in Accra who doesn't farm thinks that, oh, we need these rains. Yesterday, I had a news headline. People trading in cassava are worried at the shortage of cassava because now breweries are using cassava to produce beer.
Oh, yeah.
I said, I don't see problem. I see opportunity for the
Produce
farmer
more.
to grow more
Of course,
cassava
grow more.
and make more medicine.
And by the way, that beer is quite nice.
Yes, you know-
let me just
Oh, I see. I haven't tried that.
cassava beer is great.
I haven't tried that.
For some reason, it's only in the Volta region, but I think it's a
only in the Volta
test case. It will come to the other regions,
What's
so don't
it?
worry. It will come to your place soon. A few messages here. WhatsApp 0288 I always wonder how our own people see water passage and they build on it. As I'm telling you, going to the trade fair around the La Lagoon, there's a very big story building right on the banks of the water passage, and the serious filling of the area to build houses on it. Please, I want to know who's responsible for this. It's serious. And then also, I'm supposed to ask Honorable Aipe what you are doing about the road from Sum to Enum Apapam, because they are not seeing any improvement on the ongoing construction work. And it says, are you a contractor now?
I'm not.
IAP.
But you see,
He's
the
the MP for the area.
the system that we have, questions that should go to the executives. I want to put it in that.
It's coming to
Because
you.
That road construction is higher than the DC anyway. So that road had been awarded on contract on Cocoa Rose. The contractor went there.
Did Professor Mills cut the sword on
He
that
cut
road?
the sword
He
on that
can't
road.
on that road. It was GOG anyway. So when I saw that the work was not
the sword on that
progressing,
road.
I went to the Deputy
used
Minister
the
of
road
Finance,
recently.
Honorable
It's so sad.
Atuforson, and pleaded with him. And he decided, okay, if that's really be, but then the government has set up a committee headed by Honorable Atuforson on Cocoa Rose. So he changed the funding from GOG to Cocoa Rose.
GOG is
Government of Ghana
Government of
funding.
Ghana.
Then the contractor went on the site and they are not great certificates and they don't pay them. So that is why the reason going. Can I tell you my own story? When I live in Taifa, my fence for the back of my house is from there to there's a big stream there. So from my house, my fence wall to the stream is the natural reserve, which nobody should build there. I was there when I saw some landowners cutting plots for people, taking measurement. I approached them and they said they are selling it for people to build. I said, no, this can't happen. I use the Ghanese Assembly. At the end of the day, I have to purchase that land to stop them from. I bought it from them. It's about 4 plots of land from my house to the drain.
are
I have to buy it and reserve it.
You are rich.
Not that I'm rich.
Rich
if
MP.
they don't, no, it's not about. But you see, if it rains, I have to raise the fund to protect
raise
my
the
building.
funds.
But if they build there
I wish
and
we
it
could all
rains,
do-
the water will
I wish we could all
and
do.
it will walk.
I wish we could all do that. We buy out our problems.
Yes, that is the only solution, because I tried the authorities, they couldn't. People, they were selling, people started putting footings. So when they got to where my house is, I said, please, you
just
can't
bought them off.
sell this. And then I couldn't find them. The only option is, okay, then how much is it? Let me build it. And then
Negotiation.
reserve
And that's
the
it.
place for me.
Okay.
And that's it. But
It
how
shouldn't
many
happen like
people,
that. It shouldn't
how
happen.
many people will be able
That's
to do
correct.
that?
Yeah.
When it rains, what is happening? And unfortunately or unfortunately, those who bought can't build, because when it rains, the water
Yeah.
flood the whole place.
Let's get a few more messages. Biswa,
Indeed, but
while we're
I was
running
just
out.
going to ask, to what extent have you gone like he's done to prevent some of these human activities?
Let me go back to my own constituency. Between the main town and the Zungu areas, I live in the Zungu areas. It's a wetland. Once in a while, you see a kiosk there. The next time, so I had to engage the chiefs. I said, look, we can protect these wetlands. I hear there are even some crocodiles in there. So, and then unfortunately, that was one part of it is where they use for dumping. So I had to engage the assembly to look for final distance. So we are trying to stop them from filling gradually, and then because now it's in the middle of the town, so they see it as an eyesore. I see it as a natural reserve, and I'm a lover of nature. love of nature. So yes, I'm doing something.
Okay.
No, but do you have any experience,
Well,
anything to share with us?
contrary to their view, my hometown is actually on a mountain. So we observe the natural route of drainage. We rather want the water up there to use. So it's an irony. They are trying to get rid of the water.
You
We
want it.
water.
You want it.
Exactly.
WhatsApp
Okay.
0288 500 600.
Indeed, and from Dambai, Samora says that the problem is the governments have failed to solve this problem because the causes are eternally cyclical, relentless, and systemic. Architecture must update, and we too must be more responsible. In fact, we must begin to do the do because we have too much talk and talked and talked. All right, this is Samora from Dambai.
Okay, now somebody's talking about an impending disaster. So this is another person at Adam Nana. What a name. So Adam's grandfather. But Adam had no grandfather. Adam's father was God. Really? Okay, okay, all right, fine.
Adam is us.
Adam is talking about the,
Okay. He says, those drains are too shallow. Next is the spillage of silt onto the main road after the toll booth when you are heading towards Accra.
We haven't solved that problem.
He wants to know what can be done about that. Are we waiting for another June 3 disaster? That impending disaster can cut Kaswa off from Accra.
Yeah, we haven't solved that. We all see that problem. The first place, who allowed that hill no, they are cutting it for filling.
Yeah, okay.
And
so they are quarrying from the hill.
they're quarrying for the hill.
Yeah.
Can't we preserve that hill? We had our buildings on top of that hill. And the very soon, I think there's a church that has acquired that land. Is it Bonigas or something? There's a church that's acquired that land. And my problem, like I was saying earlier on, why do we allow the silt to come on? If we cannot prevent the silt from coming, then we should be there every day to ensure that the moment the silt comes on,
You take it away.
it is removed. That is management.
Now that you talk about it, let me take us back to Dodo, where we always dredging the silting, and yet we leave them right at the banks of the Odo.
These
and
days
so
they are
then it goes
removing
back.
them.
That's
They're
another-
removing them
them
these
now,
days.
yes.
That's another failure. Again, I suggested sometimes that because we have not been able to prevent the silt from coming in the first place, maybe in the long term we could do that.
Okay.
But for now, we should station equipment maybe at some certain intervals, constantly year round. If you did that, picking them
So it's
would be
management.
easy.
It's a
But,
management
it's
issue.
management.
Yeah.
It's management. But if you allow the silt to go about 60%,
You're going to have problems.
You're going to have problems. Even evacuating the silt from.
I know you're dying to come in, but this is an architectural question, so I'm going to pose it to my architects right here. So this is Samora from Dambai. He says, enjoying the show. Problem is that governments have failed to solve this problem because the causes are eternally cyclical, relentless, and systemic. Architecture must be updated, and we too must be more responsible. In fact, we must begin to do the do because we've talked the talk for too long.
I think Veswa just read that earlier as well. I agree. I always tell my colleagues, the engineers, architects, planners, that we are part to blame for this. We can't stand and also join people complaining because we have also been trained to be advocates of a better built environment. So when you look, when there's cholera, you see the health organizations, even NGOs, talking about what we can do and come in. How many times have you ever heard about any NGO or any professional body, either engineers or so and so, come and also educate people once in a while? So we are part to blame. So when my brother talks about education, he's not talking about only maybe the local government ministry, talking about the professional body, because even for the minister to take certain decisions, need advice from these professionals. And I'm saying that we have been too quiet on these things, and we also have to take some of the blame. We can't say that the minister didn't invite us. The NGOs who are in healthcare, education, they don't sit down to ask the education ministry or health ministry to tell them what to do. They go and do their research and they make it public, and then it becomes topical. So the architects and engineers must do same. Otherwise, we are almost irrelevant. That is why somebody wants to build a house, sees a draftsman as equally as good as an architect, just that the draftsman is cheaper. To him, that is what.
If not a mason.
You see?
If not a mason. I know people who have masons build their houses. They design houses for them.
We are too late.
Any more messages? Yes.
Yeah, let me take us now to the Volta region, Adidome, to be precise. And Kwame says that for the honorable member who purchased that parcel of land to prevent the said constructions, your work today, he believes, is wise, but your generations, he says, to come will base on your possession of that piece of land. And then in the near future or so, this problem of construction, he thinks, in waterways will arise in every neighborhood.
It was a temporary measure that I took.
Indeed.
Yeah, so definitely, and then we should be able to demolish those who are building and also getting the paved through.
Indeed, but he also concludes by saying and kind of confirming everything that we all have said here, that people should be arrested and fined or imprisoned if necessary.
I
Enforcement
still
of laws.
stand by the point that we cannot put the blame on the very people who have queued to vote for us and paying their taxes to us. We have to do everything possible to shape them.
Okay,
to
so
do
it's a leadership thing.
Leadership
Leadership
thing
must
that we
shape
have
the
to
people.
handle.
Okay.
When was the last time you went to Ebri using the Accra Ebri road?
The boulders, eh?
You see, there's a falling rock.
Yeah, the
the
rocks.
MC, the DC for Ebri himself, closed the road and said, until that rock is removed, I'm not going to allow passage of vehicle. The powers that be asked the DC to stop that. He did
open the
stop,
road.
and the rock is still hanging. It is still, if you go to Ebri right now, it is hanging.
Yeah, there was a story on it today.
That's classic.
Yeah.
Just
It is still hanging.
before Budubram, there's this deep.
So nobody should
hole there.
blame those.
So it happens.
Well, who is the MP
Right on the-
that
right
area?
on the road.
Who is the MP that
No, it's not MP. Let me tell you what
He
happened.
needs to be concerned.
No, let me tell you. I haven't
It's in
finished-
his constituency.
I haven't finished my story. It's quite close to the road. In the night, you might fall in. Very deep. Somebody put a sign there. Said 22 people are going to die here. I don't know when or where. Somebody got angry. Instead of filling that, they rather removed the warning. As if by his saying so, he's going to invite the accident. That's
The
it's
hole
still
is
there.
still there. It's
Have you used Achimota of Anko Road? The guards there.
Yeah.
But the side of the road.
crazy.
I've called personally that come and do something about it.
Yeah.
It's falling on the road.
As for
a vehicle to crash into that road before we take action.
Don't even go there.
Don't do
Because
that.
it's just a
So
crazy,
it is yes.
crazy.
Yeah.
But leadership too is
Honorable
important.
Abuja, you remember that after June 3 last year, authorities said they were going to bring down all houses on waterways. But very little has been done. Are we going to see something from Parliament House? Going to demand action?
Well, I know for sure that they talked about a series of actions, the implementation of the Conti project and other related projects, and also to demolish houses on waterways. We are in a democracy. I think after that statement, what basically happened was the people who know themselves as corporate basically went and got few injunctions against AMA and co. So AMA is a bit, can't basically, you have to respect the law. Whether the person is right or not, the court has granted an injunction. You just can't go there. Otherwise, it becomes a contempt. Okay. So some of them have been removed. We know some of them have been removed. And I dove my heart out to the mayor for clearing some of the things he was doing. And people were complaining. He did clear them. But going forward, which are the other ones that we needed to do? When he's able to remove all these things, there's something left, which is my attitude to understand that I can't go and dump my solid waste in the cleared channel. Yeah. If we think, like he's saying, let's go and position, excavation machines along the Odo River. Good point. But what if the problem was not created in the first place? Could we not save money? Because we're talking as if we have already solved all the problems of building the real roads in this country, including Accra. We haven't.
Can the authorities deal with the higher ups? Because for me, it is interesting to note that the demolitions happen in the place where the poor people live. And they can only scream and shout on radio and television. Can they go and demolish buildings in areas where you have the rich and the powerful?
Well,
is there the will? If a road can be opened after the MC says, we need to close this because there's a hanging boulder which may hit the road, but he's been pressured to open the road, can a local government authority or anybody
let's be careful.
Go do it.
Let's be careful here. The MCE might not have all the knowledge about why the risk, the level of risk of that boulder. Perhaps Hydro or the engineers went and said, yes, we can see what you're talking about. But it's not to the extent of let's shut it down yet.
No. I have a history of that. They tried.
You know the rock.
You see,
Yes,
you see. There's also something in this country. There's something in this country. Ghanaians, almost every Ghanaian thinks he's knowledgeable in everything.
No,
When we hire a coach to coach the national team. We all think we know more than the coach.
You see, that is the problem we have in this
I am
country.
saying that I would rather have a situation where there's a danger. The public alert the local authority. The local authority raise the alarm, and the professional or the other people go immediately to have a look and make a determination. I don't want my MC, my DCE, to be the one to make decision on security, everything, simply because to him,
I don't know his functions.
Yeah.
He can only take advice, but in the end, he
exactly.
makes the decision.
So I'm saying that I don't know about this particular
that is
situation,
illustrate.
but if the engineers went and saw it and said that it is a danger, but it is not up to a distance. I'm not saying that it
It's
was
a
a
real
distance.
danger. There's a certain danger. You don't need a technical eye to know that it's a danger. You see, let's
My
be
brother,
factual.
you always, whenever we are here, you always make this statement that you see, we shouldn't rule or manage this country based on my understanding. If I am going to give an advice that people should take, it should be on my professional background, and it should be backed.
I'm not a professional man. So if
it should be
there's
backed.
potholes
It should
on
be
the
backed.
road, I will not know.
It should be backed.
I'm not
by,
a professional man. So if there's a danger ahead of me on the road, I will not
You will
know.
know.
I'm not a professional man.
Let's
So
get back.
if somebody is building and is not building well, I shouldn't know.
Let's get back to our
No,
text
those
messages.
borders are dangerous.
0288 600. This show is gradually coming to an end, and I'd like to read a few messages here. I think the gutters need to be cleaned. Yes, it's the duty of the duty of the government always to clean gutters. Danny Baff, I don't think so.
Of course,
it is.
It is.
Government duty.
Outside race, is it by
Okay, sorry. He's talking about what's on the roads.
On the road,
okay,
yeah.
of course.
Not my,
good morning.
the one in my house.
Are the people not? Please let me ask. Who is the government? I know the people who form this word government. So if people don't know how to clean the environment, should we blame the government? Let's reason, because God has given us a brain to think. But of course, the authorities too must do the work that they're supposed to do. Ghana is like a banana republic. There's a chain of filling stations right after a bridge. From a bridge to a river, from Winneba to Mankesim.
Serious.
From Winneba, who is telling us this, that you have filling stations dotting the roads, and he thinks there's going to be a problem there. Bad attitude of town and country planning and the chiefs. That's Ben from Salt Pond, laying the blame squarely at the doorsteps of Nananum and Togbuyo and Nime.
Yes, they are there. Nananum are there. But the fact is this, I will continue to say it, that somebody had been paid, had been voted into office, had been appointed into office to shape. When you travel to those countries, I've not been to UK before, but for myself, my brother will now they have what we use for road marks as roundabout.
You dare not cross it.
You dare not cross it.
It's just
because
a
they have
market.
been shaped by those they voted into office,
no
by
statute
those
in
that
the
they
law. It's
paid
just a
taxes
it's just
to.
a
They have been shaped by those in authority to do the right thing. So if the people fail to do the right thing, we should be blamed. If we know all fingers are not equal. We are not. We can't. There's no way we can behave equal. Even those who have gone to school with the PhD, you will never get all of them behaving. That is why we must have somebody in authority to direct us, to shape us, to restrict us, so at the end of the day, we do the right thing. So you don't sit back and say that, hey, our attitude. Who should build that attitude?
Okay, so let's now have
those in
our
authority.
concluding remarks.
So
on how we can definitely solve this.
The way forward is this: one, we must know our priority right, know when and where we should put our money. Two, we must have a strong political will to handle some of these issues. It doesn't matter whether people vote for or against me. When we start doing that, we must look at our constitution again. It is very important. The Constitution, the 1992 Constitution, must be amended. The rules and the laws that we pass in Parliament, the bylaws and the various assemblies, must also be implemented. And finally, we must be very careful as a country to try and implement the laws without fear and favor. We must try to give some of these drains and roads for the consultants. My brother says they don't want to work with the government department. Instead of giving them the contract, we must give them the contract to manage the roads and the drains for us. It is expensive today, but at the long run, it will be cheaper. It will be cheaper for us to give the Odro drain to a company to manage it. It's not about getting them to sell it and leave it there. We should give it to them to manage this drain for us, so that the managers will make sure that nobody will throw filth into it. They will make sure that they clean it whatever they have to do for the water
Will be
flow,
done.
they will do it.
All right,
We
Mr.
must give it 5 years contract. Your responsibility is to manage this for us.
All right,
It's
well.
better than we waiting and something happen quickly. We go. It will be expensive today.
I love the passion with which you're saying this.
Yes.
The key is to manage it. Give it someone to
Manage it. We
Okay.
give it a company to manage
Mr.
it.
Boja, what are your
I
concluding
think
remarks?
I'm expecting that the revised building regulation, building code things to come to Parliament, and I encourage all my colleagues to play a role to make sure whatever we pass is fit for purpose for a couple of years. I also want to encourage the professional bodies to liaise with local government ministry to build their capacity, so that the people making decisions as to what gets built in this country is based on evidence and can last and can be preventive in things like this. I also think the professional bodies should get out of their studios or their comfort zones a bit more. And I cited example of NGOs that work in health and education. Don't wait for Ministry of Education. They go out there and do their own research. Why can't architects, engineers do the same thing and educate the public? If they come out, engineers come out with an understanding of this and come and share this with you, it can become the debating topic that we can all buy into. Okay. And I also think that those who breach the law should be made to face the music as an example. Whether you are a big man or a small man, let's make examples of few people.
Thank you.
And lastly, nobody will make this country better in terms of cleanliness than us. If I leave this studio, I drink sachet water in Thai, leave this studio, and leave it outside GH1 TV, I should be ashamed of myself. And people who sit in trotros and see this thing happen, and the people who have the courage to question them, and then you become the victim, people must be ashamed of that. That is the only way. To say that government, i.e. politicians, are the only ones who will solve this problem, I doubt which politician is in my village today to ensure that cleanliness is done. But my chief and my youth, if they understand this thing, they can do better.
Thank you very much. And your last comment, Mr.
Yes, first of all, I would like to reinforce the point he made about getting the channel managed. Not just Odo channel, there are a lot of channels in Accra which should be managed. But recently, the NDPC,
I use the Odo as an example.
the National Development Planning Commission went around the whole country consulting with stakeholders on the way forward for about a 50-year plan. And when they came to Eastern Region, one thing I saw, they had really developed, it was on paper, Accra looked beautiful, Central Accra. So we said, is it possible, or is it some utopian thing? So look, if we have the will, it's possible. I'm suggesting that if we have the will, we should just take a swath along the major channels. And if we cannot redevelop the whole of Accra, let's find the funds to redevelop the shores, or what do you call it?
The coastline?
The banks.
The banks are for rivers.
The rivers
along at least about
the lagoon,
about 100 meters to each to the sides of each major drain. That redevelopment that they have planned in a 50 years, we can take that and do. Once if you're able to redevelop the areas alongside the main, it will be a problem half solved.
Okay.
Yeah. I suggest we do
And
that.
right here, Mr.
Indeed,
David Okusi, MP for Ofuasi,
in the Eastern region.
in the Eastern region.
Handing over to Kujo Ponkoma.
Samuel Ayupe is a member of parliament for Ayensu, and also
Yes, in Eastern region.
and governs Kwame Agboja is the MP for Adaklu, up on the hills somewhere.
We need
What's
water,
happening in
actually.
that
Where
by the way?
my grandfather gave birth to a lot of my uncles.
Oh,
Yes,
really?
Yes,
Oh,
indeed.
okay.
Yes, he was a teacher there.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. So,
I
thank
hear
you.
Adaklu is the poorest community in the Volta region. What's happening? Something
Well,
there.
there is a survey which says that...
A report that I read, indeed.
Yeah, and I think the data was...
You agree?
No, well, I think a lot of things. The data was 2011 or something before we became... And I think a lot has happened. I mean, if you're talking about almost
There's a rich man from there.
20 schools built within the last 3 years, which were not part of the data. Secondary school about to double the road. We need more and other things. I think that the data today.
That's how they,
I'm looking forward to the
they
next
do
one. What do you say? I'm not going to say that we don't have poverty in Adaklu. We do, and I believe that ourselves and government is taking steps to respond to it. We are not there yet, and I believe that we can keep working on it. I see the report as an eye-opener. I disagree with a lot of elements in it, but I think that
MP.
I'm not going to rubbish it. I
Indeed.
think we just need to work on
Indeed.
it.
I think they're digging. They say you're a rich man from the place, so you're
Rich
not
man
that poor.
in the midst of poor people. Be careful.
Oh, the jobs will always continue. You know, it's NDC and
It's normal.
Here. But thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm sure you all heard about the passing of the great Muhammad Ali, and you were shocked that some students didn't know who he was. You were shocked.
I had to spend 20 minutes explaining to
Educating
some
some
young people yesterday. They said we are disturbing it. What's everything? Muhammad I said Muhammad Ali
was a symbol.
it carries the conscience of the black world at that time. You'll be surprised that your father probably have got an attitude based on that.
Oh,
it was a major thing. But the problem is that they have absolutely no clue, and they
idea.
think that our generation are making noise. That is too much. Someone also, even one of them said that, would we make the same noise if she dies? I said, if you are able to do
What
a bit
age
more.
bracket are you looking at
I'm
here?
22.
I'm surprised because Kafui's kids know Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, but it depends on the way
Six
they
and
That's
eleven.
about the majority.
Yes.
You see,
Six
the
and
point
11.
is this, this
Yeah.
time,
But
we
he's made a point.
our
My
young
mic is
people,
full about
when we were young, we
Yeah.
do a lot of research and all that.
And now, rather, when we have the internet,
Exactly.
it's
When we went to the surfacing of Accra, the area party, you know the urban roads engineer said, there's a civil engineer among you. Where is he? Then he pointed at me. I said, I'm not a civil engineer. Maybe based on the questions that asked, I'm not a civil engineer. But you must read.
Yeah.
We are fortunate enough.
We have everything
You
on the phone,
everything
so
on
we
the
just
phone.
got to read.
They don't. They will
They
try to
miss
watch
using,
movies, the Ghanaian, the
listen,
Nigerian.
they will prefer, but-
We'll bring you in for another conversation.
How do you call it?
They will watch, but sometimes it's the failure of parenting.
Yes, exactly. So it's a
he
leadership
said his
thing.
children know.
Yes.
My children know.
Yes,
You
because we
see,
told
if
them.
you are friends to your children, sometimes I'm able to gather them and talk to them about things that are.
Everything.
So they even know Muhammad Ali was Cassius Clay.
Yeah, exactly, because you taught them.
Yeah, he was Cassius
Great
Clay.
fathers.
So we should get our children around us,
Yes,
get them
yeah.
interested in what we are
Yeah.
doing. That's so.
I wonder whether they
a lot
even
of
know
gap-
who Azuma Nelson is.
I started
Because for
teaching
me,
my
I think,
2-year-old.
yeah, indeed, yeah.
Or it was
Yes.
nice
Yes.
seeing that clip
That
with you
interview with him.
Asman.
Yes.
A good one.
There's an
Yes.
extended
Our hero.
version that is
Yes.
And I have a
later
new
on.
daughter called Besua. So
Oh,
okay.
nice one.
How about that?
So talking about Azuma Nelson, I caught up with him following the death of Ali, and it was an interesting conversation. This is another segment of that conversation that we had. We'll do the long one, full one pretty soon. But this is Azuma speaking about world boxing and where it has gotten to at this point in time. You're watching
Where is the
Gauge 1
next
TV.
Azuma Nelson?
You see now with the Kafu and Beswa and our guests here. Good morning to you. Here comes the greatest for us. Yes, right here in Ghana, in Africa.
Champ.
Yeah.
Recently, there's been news that professionals can now also take part in Olympic boxing. And you're not too happy with that?
No.
Why? Why is that so, Prof?
No, because, you see, I don't know those people who sat and then talk about these things, that the professionals will fight with the amateurs, you know. No, I mean, it's like you are in GSS and writing an exam with the university. No, it cannot be possible. It doesn't matter how fast you
But
are.
how different is amateur boxing from professional boxing? It's still the same uppercut, jabs, left hook, right hook?
Yeah, that's why they call it amateur, because the people they are beginners. You know, professionals are professional. You know, when you talk about profession, when somebody say, "Listen, I'm a professional lawyer," you know, it means you need to pay. You know, so if you're a student in law, you know you're a student. You haven't passed to be paid.
So you reckon the amateur boxers are like students,
Yes.
and then the professionals are, they have graduated to a different level?
Yeah.
And you think it will affect boxing that much in Olympics?
Very, because I don't think amateur boy will be can win a gold medal if the professionals are there. You see, like when I was a professional, and then they tell me I'm fighting 12 rounds now, and then all of a sudden I'm going to fight for 3 rounds. You see the speed that and the speed and the experience. You know, I'll kill somebody.
Because amateurs fight fewer
Only
rounds.
3.
Only 3.
Yeah.
Professionals go to 10 now.
12.
10 even up to 12.
Yeah.
Back then it was even 15.
Yes, 15.
Yeah.
You know, and so how can you say that the amateur fighting professional?
So for you it's a bad idea?
No, it's a bad idea.
Bad idea.